Welcome to the People Leader Accelerator podcast. I'm executive coach Jess Yuen, joined by my co-host, the co-founder and managing partner of People Leader Accelerator, Andrew Bartlow. On this show, we dive deep with business and HR leaders to uncover what really works when it comes to building high-performing organizations, navigating leadership challenges, and making better management decisions. Whether you're the first people leader at a startup or a seasoned executive at a company with scale, you'll find practical insights you can apply right away. For show notes and free bonus resources, visit peopleleaderaccelerator.com/podcast. And if you're looking for hands-on support from developing your leaders to creating a high-performance culture to hiring the right people, visit us at peopleleaderaccelerator.com. We'd love to help. Let's get into today's episode.
Ryanmae, thank you so much for joining Jess and I on the People Leader Accelerator podcast. Just thrilled that you are willing to chat with us, and you brought your furry friend.
It would not be me if the cat did not interrupt. So
you need to watch on YouTube to see the cat. There may be more. Ryanmae, we've known each other for 5-ish years, maybe not quite yet. Starting out in Startup Experts that we both belonged to for a while. You were part of a People Leader Accelerator cohort and continue to be really engaged, and you just love having the opportunity to work with you in a variety of different ways and, connect and collaborate on this. But you'll do a better job explaining your background. For those folks that don't know you, could you give a little bit more about Ryanmae?
yeah, so I am I coined myself the non-traditional people leader. I have bounced around. I worked in veterinary, I've worked at ski areas, have kind of settled back into the tech space in the since 2018. Have a very kind of eclectic network of people across all things. I'm an eternal student. Something you talk about in People Leader Accelerator is what would you do if you could do anything? I'm I would have 75 degrees and just never not be learning. So I channel that into things like doing People Leader Accelerator, working with startup experts, spending a lot of time just having these conversations and really engaging. I took something from Startup Experts about 3 years ago. It was the self-branding and getting on LinkedIn. And now I really feel when I talk about people programs, I know I've hit gold when someone's like, what would your CEO say if he saw that? Or I'm going to send it to him. And I'm like, yes, I have hit my mark, because I always love a hot take. I think that's kind of how you and I bonded, Andrew, where we were both I think we're at an event and both of us were like, that's crazy. Here's the controversial side of this. And it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. I think having healthy debate and difference of opinions is important. And I think as people leaders, I really explain in most of executive presence, which I have really built up in the last year, thanks to People Leader Accelerator, has been, okay, here's how we should do it. Here's what you want to do. And maybe here's an in between. And sometimes that means let's gray area this. Let's find the 3 lefts that make it right. And so that's really kind of where I've been focused in the last couple of years, is just focusing on not every square peg is going to be the answer. Let's find the round one. Let's figure out, is it just a whole change of pace? What is that? And really identifying how that helps and translates to our teams.
Great. Now you're at Blackthorn now. They do an event management software.
Yes.
Been there a while, just got promoted. Share with the folks that don't have that background or haven't looked it up on LinkedIn yet. Yeah, what type of company is this that people might connect with?
Yeah, so I'm the vice president of People Ops for Blackthorn. We're a SaaS company. We're in the Salesforce space. We have a host of apps. Our main kind of baby is the event management, which it's native to Salesforce. We run a global program. We're 100% remote. We are a little bit different than a normal SaaS in that we are kind of a bootstrapped, scrappy, self-made thing. I am coming up on 5 years, which feels crazy. And to go from there with when we were 20 people to now we're over 100 and some is amazing. And as a people person, I kind of do it all. I run all of the ops, and I'm just a typical startup SaaS people person.
Typical, anything but typical, Ryanmae. You've become a little bit of an influencer in the HR space. So
I would never, ever say that. I would say I'm a controversial poster. I tend to just have a really good group of smart people that I surround myself with who are actually influencers. So maybe I'll just I'm influencer adjacent.
What do you think has resonated with so many people that follow you and are, connected to the voice that you bring to this work?
I think there's a couple pieces of it. I am hugely transparent on things, good, bad, and in between. I'll be the first to be like, yeah, I have no idea what that is, or we really messed that up. And I really try and stick to some personal philosophies which have really seemed to land. And it came down to, I don't want to be just my job. I don't want to be defined by that. I don't want to be just Ryanmae, VP of People Ops and all of that. And it was empowering. It was really freeing. And I think what lands is I talk a lot about, like, I call it the brick wall analogy. Being at Blackthorn, whatever the title, whatever it is, that's one brick in my wall. I'm a wife. I'm an auntie. I'm a member of the People Leader Accelerator community. I volunteer in my community. I'm a friend. I'm a cat mom. I want all of those bricks to be a foundation of a whole person, kind of I call it my whole ass self. And I think that resonates with people on people community because all of us, we're all servant hearts. We take a lot of it on. And then I think outside of the people community, when I'm talking to my employees and stuff, they love that I'm like, no, I'm a real human being. I simplify it when I talk about people ops. What are the main parts of my job? People are getting paid. People have a safe workspace. We have basic benefits. But outside of those, I can't really control the rest of it.
Was this something that you had in your early career where you kind of felt like you could be yourself? And what shifted, what allowed you to feel like you had that confidence to be able to show up in this way?
Early in my career, no, because I think most of us kind of fell into people. I literally applied for a job at a ski area thinking I would wait tables for a winter. And they were like, you have a degree and you should probably like be in the HQ office doing HR. And I was like, yeah, I'm 22. I don't know what that is. Let's go. So I would say no. I credit kind of COVID times. And even a little bit before that, I was in a consultancy and I've always been a very bold person. I'm loud. And I took a job at a consultancy in Palo Alto as an office admin. My now retired HR mentor, I was talking to her about it and she was like, so go ask him. Just go tell him to take a chance on you. You have the background, you have the education. And that was really kind of the turning point for me where it started, just going and having that conversation with Peter and saying like, I want to do this. Here's my qualifications. He could have said no and he didn't. And I think that was kind of like the first pebble on the confidence path. There are still times I doubt myself. It's just a little bit of fake it till you make it. And I always think like, they said no. Okay. What's next? For me, again, being that eternal student, what am I going to look out for outside of that to maybe then next time the no is a yes?
I think this is like textbook growth mindset that we're hearing right now of just take the chance. Because if you don't ask, you'll never know. I'd love to dig into a bit of like this career arc of yours, especially the part where you said, oh, and by the way, I was like the office admin. You know, I kind of took a step back in my career, some might say, or took a side off the HR path for a hot second. Can you talk through like, how did you think about those trade-offs of, I was actually just talking to an HR professional who was like, should I become an administrative assistant right now? Because I think it's a sidestep, but wasn't sure quite how to weigh those pros and cons of thinking about it.
I think administrative assistants are a level of HR if they're not recognized that because they don't have the system access in that, but you're dealing with so many humans on such a granular level. And something that I think has served me from having that administrative background is I'm comfortable with an exec because I used to be the gatekeeper. To have that kind of intimacy where you feel a little bit more comfortable, I think that translated. I had been with a veterinary practice for 6 years. I worked myself out of a job. I was also very, very compassion fatigued. So I had taken a step back and I was presented with this officeman opportunity at a consultancy. And I was like, well, I'd love to work there as an HR consultant. They're not hiring for that. Maybe I do take the chance and see. And it was a really great reset because admin work is hard if you are not someone who has ever done admin work. And it's a really good practice in dealing with humans. So I had taken that step back. When I was first there, I probably would have never thought to jump to the people team because I really leaned in on what I was doing and loved the CEO. There was a shakeup and Peter took over the people practice and him and I just jived. And I remember going to him and saying like, hey, I was like, I'll still be your admin on the down low, but I want to do this. And he was like, okay, we did it. And really the arc in that, again, I was like, what about this do I like? What about this am I struggling with? And for me, I love the humans. I just need like one set of humans to love on. I also think there's a niche for people who are really good at like, hey, these are my humans. I'm going to really dig in and pour in on that. And I think a part of that comes from my admin background and taking that chance of like, let me go back to just kind of like loving on the humans.
Before we get back to the conversation, here's a quick word about People Leader Accelerator. If you're an HR leader at a scaling company, you don't have to do it alone. The People Leader Accelerator is a 16-week program where you will learn, grow, and build lasting relationships with peers who get it. And once you graduate, you're part of our community for life. Apply now at peopleleaderaccelerator.com. All right, let's get back into the conversation.
Yeah, there's something really powerful about having longer term relationships with those humans and seeing them evolve and having that history with them. There's another part of your career that is recent. You were promoted. Congratulations.
Thank you.
VP. Super exciting. I heard that you turned down this promotion initially.
Andrew never let me live it down.
Tell us more. What is the story about that? Because you also have had this meteoric rise while at Blackthorn. And I think there are a lot of HR leaders out there who are like, oh my gosh, I want that journey. How do I have that journey to be able to come in and start in people ops and then get promoted and promoted and promoted again and get that top job?
I think one, anytime you're not sure on a decision, don't listen to just yourself. I think Ryanmae is pretty smart, but she definitely doesn't give herself the best advice, which I think is true of most people leaders. We're really great at advice to other people. So Blackthorn has been a rocket ship. And there was a discussion. We did a big sales reorg last summer. And my CEO, who I have a great relationship with, was like, hey, do you want the VP title? And I was like, nope, no, thank you. And it was a very quick decision.
Can we peel back for a moment? Like when you heard VP title, like what went into your mind of what was unappealing about it?
So there was a couple pieces of it. One was the imposter syndrome. I definitely feel very young at heart. There's a little bit of imposter syndrome to that as well. And another part of me is I am still working through a process of I had kind of a very chaotic upbringing where there was a lot of change and I don't do great with change on kind of not my terms. And I always think about like, well, what's the next steps? And for me, I was like, you need to get a job after this. The market is trash right now. And that was all really went through my head. And I don't think there was a good reason for me to just like super shut it down. A fellow People Leader alum, Juatao, was like, what are you doing? And I think everybody could tell at that point I wasn't ready to have the conversation. But I think imposter syndrome is real. And I think it's okay. And I know now on this side of it, if I had verbalized all of those and had a conversation, would my answer have been different? I honestly don't think it would have at that point. There was a person in our cohort who I love. And he is really the point where it like pivoted to where I was like, we need to have this conversation again, like with my CEO, and I need to be ready. And he sidebarred me and he was like, we need to talk about this. It was a very tough love conversation. I was like, okay, you're right. And I like sat on it and I was like, here's what I'm going to do. And I prepared some data and some decks and some slides. I was ready to go in and like present and really focus on my executive presence. And I was like, hey, so I've been thinking about that conversation from last year. And it was like, yeah, totally. It's yours. Not a problem. Okay. But that's where I really want to like make sure to tell people this is not a normal journey. This is not standard. It has been a combination of hard work, self-reflection, listening to people who are smarter than me when I am making rash, quick decisions. I can't give you an SOP. I can't give you a schematic. I can't give you a step-by-step of instructions. The only piece that I will say, talk to everyone. I run everything by Andrew. I also have a great HR mentor who she's someone, if she tells me to jump, I will literally just be like, how high and when do I stop? Because I trust her instinct and her knowledge to that point. That's really the only like magic or secret sauce I could offer is find people who will tell you the hard truths, because sometimes the hard truths are you're not ready.
Ryanmae, I wonder, for the benefit of our listeners who are other people that are maybe a couple years earlier in their journey than you are, if we could try to discover maybe on the fly what it was that helped you be so successful during this rise and run at Blackthorn. And I have a theory, I have a suspicion that it has to do with how you're interacting internally, with how you're communicating across the teams and across the functions, and then this deep trusting relationship with your CEO. I know you're deeply involved in your org, and I don't think the way that you're involved is super common, but it's something that other HR leaders could potentially learn from, if you'd be willing to share a little bit more of like, how do you operate inside? And it's not that you have some fancy perk or program, it's how you show up, I think.
I think that a part of it is something that I took from my mentor is the power of conversation And I'm huge on transparency. I talk about that a lot. Something that was told to me in an interaction with my mentor, she's like, I'll tell you no, but I will never say no because I said so. I will say no, and there will be space for us to have a conversation. And it was always, there's 3 things that's going to happen after that. It's still going to be a no, but I'm going to hope you feel better because you have context. It's going to be a yes because you had some information I may not have had or a perspective I didn't think of. Or it's going to be this door number 3 because we both came to the table with things and came up with a new solution together. And so when I show up in an org, you always talk about like the first 30 days. If a company is small enough, I plan on meeting with every single person. I want to tell them about myself. I want to tell them what I'm hoping to accomplish. And I want to hear, 1, who are they? Are you a parent? Are you not a parent? What do you like to do for fun? And I think that's alluding to really what Andrew says is I'm really hard on vendors, especially salespeople. And some of where I'm ingrained is they'll come to me and say, we're going to save you $50,000. These 2 people, which is like 0.8% of your head count, they're going to feel a little bit of the pain. But otherwise, it's this great thing. 9 times out of 10, and I would say even like 9.9999 times out of 10, I'm going to be like, no, because those 2 people, I know their story. I usually have at least a pulse on that. And I think that as a people leader is something that is where the most successful people are. You have to know your people. And I do talk about pretty regularly, like we have human resources and people operations. And I know Carmela will drop personnel in there at some point. I think people operations is really like your people person. And I think that's where with Blackthorn, it's really special. I joke that we are unhealthily codependent with my CEO and I because we communicate in a million different ways and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, but we're very comfortable with each other. We had a conversation last week where we were both frustrated on some stuff and we were kind of blocked on a thing. And I was like, here's how I see it. We have these conversations where it's like, you'll come to me and he's come to me. It's not been all sunshine and roses like, hey, I need this to change. I need this to be improved. I am struggling with you on this. And it doesn't feel good to hear. Those aren't my favorite moments. But I respect him enough and I care about Blackthorn enough that I sit with it. And do I go get advice from someone? Do I find a class? Do I find an article? Do I talk to my therapist? What does that look like? But on the flip side, I get that same respect. He's the same kind of leader where I can come to him and it's learning about timing. Him and I know each other well enough, but that's just part of why I think I get ingrained with my people is one of my proudest things is I have not left my last 5 jobs without lifelong relationships. I'm there to protect the company. I'm also there to make sure the company's not just like milking everything they can get out of these humans with no kind of reciprocation and appreciation and safety. And I think that's where there's a really fine line in that and where I try to be transparent in the human side is my childhood best friend worked at Blackthorn for, I think it was almost 2 years. And we had a conversation. I was like, I'm going to pass your resume. I'm out after that. All of the normal SOPs that we have for hiring and getting onboarded at Blackthorn, those are changing because this is your merit, your stuff. I have nothing to do with it. I don't want you to think you ever got this job because of me. And I don't want anyone to think you got special treatment because my hands were in it. If that conversation ever came up, I'd be like, I can't even see her in greenhouse. I don't know. And the flip side of that was having a conversation with her as well as being like, hey, so this is my career. And if you have to be laid off or gosh forbid you're getting terminated, I'm going to be there. I could wholeheartedly disagree and be like, you can't fire her. She did nothing wrong. That's not going to be my conversation to have. It's going to be me treating you just the way I would treat anyone else in that situation. And it's got to be separate.
The thread I'm hearing, and Jess, you may pick up on this even better than I will, is the authenticity that builds real trusting relationships. And if people feel like they have a lot of intimacy with you, like they know who Ryanmae is, what she cares about, we know that we can trust her. And the self-orientation is rather low. Like, I'm here to help you, the employees, I'm here to help the company be successful. That engenders a ton of trust. And that builds real relationships. And that allows difficult conversations to happen. And that's something that not everybody is comfortable leaning into. And I'm not saying bring your whole self everywhere. Like, you can, tuck it in sometimes, folks. But at the same time, can you share enough of yourself and care enough to get to know others that those genuine, trusted relationships can flourish over time. And that gives you more influence. And that allows you in where you can talk about the finances, you can talk about the product. And something you didn't mention here that you have in other cases is like, this product inside and out. You're being very humble about it.
I do not know this product inside and out.
Right.
I can speak to the product at a level other people leaders may not be able to for their orgs, is how I would say it.
Which is one of the areas that others could potentially learn from, right? So trusted relationships without knowledge of your business,
yes,
may be hollow.
I would even take that a step further. I don't know if it's knowledge of your business. Something I think would have been beneficial to me before I was on the executive team that I've done since being on the executive team, but I'll use our VP of finance. I don't understand finance. I don't even do the finances in our house. I get a once a week, like, stop spending money text from my husband. But going and taking a half hour with our VP of finance when he started and being like, what are the 3 things I need to know? Anybody who's trying to be a good people leader, you need to have that conversation with every single function. I can't tell you what product does. I can't tell you what engineering. I mean, I can tell you what they do, but I can't say, like, to a granular level, I'm not going to go in and start writing code or having product input designs and stuff. But what's important for me to know of those functions? Because it also gives that buy-in on both ways where it's like, they feel heard, they feel acknowledged. They know that I'm not just here to just, like, check a box. And on the flip side, it starts conversations like, what should I really know about the people side? What should I know about people ops? What should I be concerned about? And I think it's, again, building that trust, building that stuff. I also am just, again, an eternal student learner at heart. Learn your product, because maybe one day I'm done with people ops. And what do I want to do? Do I want to go work in sales? Do I want to, like, go into marketing? Like, those conversations with every single function in your business are a tool in your arsenal, even if you can't see it when you have them.
Yeah, I think the words of relationships, trust, authenticity are coming up. And for me, part of what was interesting about what you were doing, and I think what the best people leaders do, is they humanize. They're humanizing HR to the employees. They're humanizing the employees to themselves so that they better understand and empathize with the needs as well. There was an interesting example I want to pull a thread on that you had mentioned. Hey, if a vendor comes to me and it's going to impact 2 of my employees in a significant way, that's a no for me. It makes my brain kind of go, oh, this is so tricky, because I think in HR, there is this idealization that we can make, like, everything great for 100% of our employees. And how do you balance with things where it's like, oh, there's a subset of people who are going to be impacted versus thinking about, like, but on average, this might overall be useful or beneficial?
I don't think I can make everyone happy. I use healthcare as a really good example. We have had some crazy increases, and it's been kind of this whole thing where we've always worked through it. And that's where I really have to, like, dig in. And in those moments, I think having those problem-solving skills helps, but knowing the human side of it, because we have single moms, we have single dads, we have people raising kids that aren't theirs, that are foster parents. We have people whose financial stuff we may not know about. Maybe they're taking care of their parents, or they're actually, like, physically take care of parents, not just financially. So I want to keep that in mind when I make those decisions. And last year we had a crazy increase. We worked with our vendors. We have great partnerships. It was a struggle, and it took till the 11th hour, burning the midnight oil, doing models. But something that really stuck out with me in those conversations is when the first easy was like, hey, get rid of this carrier and do this. I was like, well, first of all, I'm on that carrier. So, like, do your research. Step 1. And 2, no, I don't know in what community you think I'm going to, like, go to this person and be like, hey, everybody else has seen, like, a $30 increase. Yours is going up like $700. So we solved it. It wasn't great. Like, there was still an increase on both sides. But what we also did that I think helped is we know the human element. We went on a full educational campaign. We had conversations. Anybody who was affected more than $50 a month, I personally met with them, showed them the numbers, showed them the options, was like, hey, if that's too much, here are the buy downs and here's the difference. Here's that. Nobody was happy their healthcare was going up. Personally, as an employee, same. I think most of the time when you have struggles in employee relations and kind of in life in general, is the lack of being heard. I use this in the role of conversations for layoffs and terminations. It guts me. I never sleep the night before knowing those things happen. I have a rough day, but none of that comes into that call because it's not about me. That person's getting rocked news. They're going to have all the emotions, and I'm going to hold space. And My piece of that is knowing once that call is done and I log off for the day, can I sit down to dinner? Can I then wash my face and look myself in the mirror before I go to bed and be like, it was a hard day, but you didn't do the things you hear were like, we laid you off with a text message and gave you no severance. Those are the moments, those are the stories where I'm like, how do you sleep with yourself at night? How do you like look people in the eye and ask them to trust you after that was your action path? And being true to like, hey, we don't always get it right, but we'll acknowledge if it's wrong. And in the heavy moments, we will show up where we can and do what we can to make this as, I don't want to say easy because it's not easy, make it as less stinging as possible or take the heat out of it, however it is, and offer a support. I tell every person that's departing Blackthorn, hey, today is not the last day of our relationship. And do you need a job reference or do you need to know where employment verifications, if you're buying a house or something, are these things? Here are those resources. Also, if you have questions, like you have my email, please make sure you don't hesitate to reach out.
Ryanmae, something that you said sparked for me. We try to ask a lot of our guests some of the same questions so that our listeners can capture those golden nuggets across everybody. One of those that I don't think we've asked every single time, but the idea of learning and growing, and we don't always get everything right. I'd love to hear from you if you're willing to share. Is there something that you've felt strongly about that you've changed your mind on through this professional journey of yours? Have you done a hard 180 on something?
So many things. I think the big one that I really have done a 180 on is quitting and leaving. I think that there's still a big stigmata where organizations take it very personally when you leave. And it's like, you don't have to give them notice because they wouldn't give you notice. That's a true statement. I don't love that. It's kind of part of the business. But I think where it's important is I take it as a compliment. If somebody says, I respect you enough to not just sit here and waste your time and collect a paycheck. And I know managers have a really, really hard time with that, but I'm like, they're doing you a favor. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I love the company I work with. There are days where I'm like, this is not it for me. And I need to go figure out how to like make it on TikTok because I don't want to do this no more. That doesn't mean I'm doing that every day. And on those days, yeah, I'm not giving my boss his best version of what he's quote unquote paying for. But if I'm having that every single day, that's not fair to me and it's not fair to the company. And that's where I think like one of the things we really need to talk about, if somebody has the courage to go find a new job and come to you and say, hey, this was a great run. I can't do this. How can I help with the transition? Those are awesome. Yeah, there are people like, I hate you guys. I don't want to work here anymore and I'm leaving. Again, that is still a gift. The conversation's not as warm as fuzzy. It's not as comfortable, but we still have it because I don't know what you're saying to other employees. I don't know what you're putting in the well of this employee pool of, is it poison? And I don't want that. And then again, at the end of the day, I really don't want anybody to be unhappy.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think it leads so nicely into the next question, which is part of our accelerator round. 3 questions that we ask at the end, kind of shorter, quicker answers. And the first one's about learning, which is your sweet spot. PLA loves high leverage learning. If you could only recommend 2 resources to an emerging people leader, what would make the cut?
Every book that every human in the entire world should read is It's Smart Brevity. That book changed my communication styles. It changed how I kind of organize my thoughts. Other resource is community. Find networking. If you want to be in HR, find these communities like PLA, like the Startup Experts. There's other ones out there too, because you're also going to find the subsets in those. I joke, Patty and Jua are kind of my crew. We're real life friends. Like it's not just HR talk. It's not just people up talk.
I'm hearing smart brevity. So how can we be brief in what we're communicating? And then also find your people. And I love that you said you have your HR besties chat that you will go to in times of need. The next question is, in 1 sentence, what advice would you share with someone who's looking to accelerate their HR career in today's environment?
Ask questions. You can find me on LinkedIn and ask me questions. I will totally answer you. Ask questions outside of the people ops space.
Brilliant. And you mentioned LinkedIn. Is that the best way for our listeners to connect with you, or is there other places that you would like us to point them?
LinkedIn is pretty much it. I am there more than I should be. I do try to respond. I get a lot of sales pitches. So if I don't respond the first time, feel free to like ping me again and I will try. Comment also on posts if like I haven't got back to you on something or you have a question.
Ryanmae, thank you. Really appreciate you bringing the energy and the life and the truth. We talked about trust. We talked about your career arc, and let's find our own rocket ships and grow the way that you did.
And don't compare your rocket ship to anyone else. I think that would be the number one thing is my next journey is not going to be a Blackburn rocket ship. And I don't think anyone should be like, well, that's what she's doing. That's what I'm doing. Water your grass, focus on your own. And again, find your people who are going to support you in that. And that's really when it all clicks.
I love it. Let that be the last word aside from thank you, Ryanmae.
Thank you guys. This is super exciting. I love this.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of People Leader Accelerator Podcast, where we talk with business and HR leaders about what makes great leadership and great work. We hope you walked away with at least one game-changing insight for you and your team. You can find show notes and free bonus resources at peopleleaderaccelerator.com/podcast. If today's conversation sparked something for you, hit subscribe, leave a quick review, and share this episode with that one colleague who really needs to hear it. You know who I'm talking about. And if you're currently navigating the tricky waters of hiring top talent, developing leaders who actually lead, or building a culture that fuels growth, let's talk. You can find us at peopleleaderaccelerator.com. We're here to help you and your team not just survive, but truly thrive. I'm Jess Yuen, and on behalf of my co-host, Andrew Bartlow, thanks for investing your valuable time with us. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. Until next time, keep learning and keep leading.